Good day, folks. We're talking about managerial accounting and managerial finance because they're very, very related. Is that we're working with management to provide them with information and to help them interpret the information and help them in the planning process, in the making of the decision-making process, continuous improvement. But to do that, in addition to knowing the structure, the products, but it's important to know what's going on in the world today. And with the COVID-19, which has had a cataclysmic impact on the world, the needs of the managers are changing. For some of them, it's about survival. It's others, how can they take advantage of the situation? And what I'd like to do now is walk through, I've entitled this Impact of COVID-19 on Business, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Well, yesterday in the world, what did we see before all of this? We saw slowing worldwide economic growth, including here in the U.S. Things were slowing down. We saw a lot of trade tensions between trading partners. Stock market was an upward trend. It's going up. We've seen historically low levels of unemployment with plenty of jobs for everyone. They may not have been the right mix of jobs, okay, because there were 7 million unfilled jobs primarily because of lack of skills. Some of it's skills, so we had an untrained workforce. Some of it's where the jobs are and where people are. We had historically low interest rates. We never thought they could go any lower. But at the same time, we had political instability, and that's been building ever since. Political instability, not just here in the United States, but across the globe. So we had that going on. This thing about a virus in Wuhan, China in January, February, it didn't seem to impress us at all. It just was there, and we were watching it to some degree. What were we doing? Planning spring trips. Maybe you were planning on being away. You were looking forward to graduation and related activities. Summer vacations. I had hoped to have been in Europe to do this. Summer jobs, summer internships, new beginnings, the fall. Whether it's coming to Geneseo or continuing your studies. But fun, friends. Everything was, I think we were all doing pretty good. Okay? So that's what was happening just a few months ago. January, February was like this. We're extremely hopeful. I'd like to introduce a concept to you today called the Black Swan Theory. Since Roman times, all swans are white was a fundamental truth. And an expedition to Australia captured 2 black swans, proving their existence and disproving the theory. Black swans are rare events. Black swans have an extreme impact. And black swans can only be predicted retrospectively after the fact and not prospectively. So that's sort of the black swan theory. Now, what is a black swan? Well, if we turn it over to the economic perspective, it's a highly improbable event with 3 characteristics. 1, it's unpredictable. None of us saw this coming. In the beginning of the year, even if we go back to the fourth quarter of 19, we didn't see it. Carries a massive impact. We have seen that. And after the fact, we make up stories and explanation to make it appear less random and more predictable. We try to rationalize it. But when we look at it, actually black swan events, highly unlikely to happen, but would have severe consequences if they happen, catastrophic. That's what we have had, that it has come together, this black swan event called COVID-19 coronavirus. It's a very unusual event, highly improbable. So if you think about this as a black swan event, and we now have COVID-19 all over, it's a disruptor. It's forcing change. Now, this is things. When we look at the map, and this is a pretty scary thing. This is in the New York Times. You can go find it every day. This one I pulled up is as of the 26th. 2.4 million people in the United States have had confirmed COVID-19. The deaths have been 124,393. Seems like a small number, but it's not. It's material. It's big. And this is back when the crisis was starting, when we left school in March. And you could see that it looked like it had peaked here in April, and things were trending down. But what we've seen in the past couple weeks is an increase. Now, if we took this and looked at New York State, we're way down here now, and the rest of the country is up. So we are seeing an uptick. And if you look at the daily number of COVID cases, here was the peak. The last peak was here at about 36,000. We're now approaching 40,000 people a day being diagnosed. Now remember, this takes time to work through the system. And where these cases are seems to be Florida, Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, California. Some of them opened very quickly. So what do we know about this? One, we know for sure it's not over. This will continue to be with us. What we're seeing here is not the second wave. This is still the first wave as it works its way across the country. Okay? The real second wave is going to come in the fall or the winter. It's not dead. There is no vaccine, and they hopeful that by the end of the year, early next year, there'll be a vaccine. As things are opening back up, we're taking certain precautions to protect our health, whether that is wearing masks, keeping social distancing, washing our hands, avoiding large indoor groups. But this has had a huge impact on the world, on companies, and it just keeps walking through the entire process of our daily lives, of our jobs, of our education. It's a huge impact, Black Swan event. But I want to come back because we're all in this together. We're not in the same boat. Every one of us is different, but we're in the same storm. And I want to introduce something here that's a little bit not relevant, but I think it is as we start thinking about how will you be successful in this course, how will you be successful in what you do every day. First is, what's trauma? Trauma results from the events, series of events or circumstance that experienced by an individual is physically or emotional harming or threatening, lasting impacts on us. And when we think about this, we have all been traumatized by what is going on. It's so much unknown. And we say, how do we deal with trauma? Well, there's a physical reaction, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive, how we think. And what I did is, these are things that are a result of trauma. And what I did is, there's a lot of them here, but I highlighted those that have impacted me. Decreased concentration. Yeah, I've had a hard time concentrating. My sleep patterns are off. Are yours? And some things I lose interest, which is probably a result of decreased concentration. Loss of interest. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed. Just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Eating more or less than normal. Okay. Drinking or smoking more than normal. I think eating more. I did that in the first month. And then I still eat. I reduce what I eat and when I eat. And I'm now more physically active, getting 12,000 steps a day and about 6 miles of walking. But there's other ones here too. Irritability, depression, vigilance, little or no memories, chronic pain, headaches, panic attacks, shame, startled response, intrusive memories, flashbacks, hopelessness. So this is how I'm dealing. We're all dealing with these issues. And these are the ones that are impacting me. Which ones are impacting you? Take a minute and think, are you going through any of these? Well, if you are, your responses are normal reactions to abnormal events. And I would suggest that everyone in our country, in our world, is experiencing these. So now if we're going to be working with management, we have to be aware of our own trauma responses, but also the trauma responses of managers, customers, employees, suppliers, government. These are normal reactions to this black swan event. I'm going to go through some basic economic assumptions here, because sometimes we lose track of some of this. Price is determined by an agreement between a willing buyer and willing seller. Always important to know. Price is influenced by that relationship between supply and demand. If supply exceeds demand, the price tends to go down. If demand exceeds supply, the price goes up. This includes products, services, and labor. Now, we saw that when demand exceeds supply for when we started out, toilet paper, hand sanitizer. We still can't get Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes. And I saw one that was $12 the other day. I ain't going to pay $12 for something I used to pay $3 for. But it's out there. Keep this in mind as we move forward, because this is foundational to managerial accounting, because we're going to be helping management and leaders decide what to price things. Okay? So we got to be aware of these things. The other one is to be aware that the economy is what is happening. Most of it is data-based. Many measures of what the economy is doing. A measurement of society to agree. What is society doing? Then there are the financial markets, stocks, bonds, etc. And they often reflect what has happened and what may happen in the future. Different people make different assumptions and have a different point of view. And when we have that, we have differences of opinion. And this is what's happening in the financial markets, is that it's forward-looking, but looking in the rearview mirror at the same time. The market reacts to news. We have seen that for the past 3 months. Anytime there's a piece of news, it goes up, goes down, up, down, up, down. It reacts to news. The other thing is the market is influenced by program, algorithmic traders. And today we're finding it, the individual investor in Robinhood is causing some of this movement. But it's future orientated. So it is telling us something, but it isn't telling us about the strength of the economy, because they don't necessarily move in sync. I think this is something to take a look at in this determining the impact. This is about food. Yeah, it could be used for anything. It's a supply chain, but let's just look at it as food. Okay, whether that be beef, whether that be chicken, any food product. So when we start, you have somebody that supplies the farmers with the seed, the materials. After the farmers raise the animal or raise the crop, they give it to processors. Processors in turn sell it to wholesalers. Wholesalers sell it to retailers. Retailers sell it to consumers. And then it works its way back up. So what we have is each interface in this supply chain represents movement of goods, information, and physical process. So there's purchases and sales. Now, when you think about it, there's a time lapse here. Okay? And one bottleneck at any one of these points works downhill. So we've seen that in the food business, because a lot of farmers had, if you're looking at it from hogs and cows, is that they had planned on a consumption of X. Okay, and so they're ready to go. But now we see that slaughterhouses and packaging plants had to close. So there was no place for the farmers for their farm animals to be processed, which means it didn't get to the wholesalers, or a different variety, which got to retailers and consumers. And we saw empty shelves as a result of that. But remember, crops don't grow overnight, nor animals. Pigs and cows don't grow overnight. They take time. And when we come down to this, a lot of products are packaged. For example, beef. A lot of the beef business is processed for restaurants. So size and packaging and cut are very different than what you and I as a consumer may have. So every industry has this, And a COVID issue in any one of these is going to affect the whole chain. Okay? And that's why we're all interconnected. And when we have states that have different policies and procedures, it becomes even more convoluted as we move ahead. This has effectively stopped our economy. A lot of people thought a lot of things kept on, but some of the more visible signs of an economy, stores, retail, and travel, have come to a halt. Really been a huge impact on our economy. Retail sales have been down. Go back to the supply chain. What happens?